Welcome to the Kwanzaa Film Festival. Today we are inspired by the principle Ujima, collective work and responsibility. And we have some exciting guests from all over. One, we have Bobby Diggy, the president of the Nigerian in the diaspora. Then we have Melissa Adim. I'm sorry, I don't want to mess up anyone's name. Adem Yemo,
Adiemo.
producer Adeyemo, which is
Yes.
beautiful. Producer,
Thank
founder
you.
of Manera Studios. And then
Yes.
we have Natural Langdon, a filmmaker. And, it's always been my, biggest goal is to see us working together from Africa to United States, from Jamaica to Brazil, wherever we are, Africans coming together and producing films. And so, this topic that we're discussing today is how to produce from USA to Africa. And whatever that means to you, I would like for each person to introduce themselves and say a little bit about the topic. We can start with ladies first, Melissa.
All right. So about myself and the topic of how to co-produce, correct?
Yes, from
All right,
Africa,
cool.
from the United States to Africa. Yes.
Okay, so my name is Melissa Adiemo. I am a Nigerian American by way of the New Jersey Turnpike. I was born and raised in the States, but I'm first gen. So I have parents who immigrated from Nigeria here in the 80s. I started, my journey kind of started really quickly um, in, I want to say my journey kind of towards creating content that was focused on the global African diaspora. Um, I would say it in high school, actually. I took a course called Modern Africa, and it framed a lot of the things that you kind of hear about and or see in different parts of the continent, not necessarily Nigeria, but it kind of set my passion afire. And since then, I have been working in some way, shape, or form to try and reframe how African people, and specifically like Nigerians at the moment, are seen. I chose media because, like most people, I just had no interest and or passion in medicine, which was the supposed career path that I was going to go on. Fast forward, I have been working in media and entertainment since I was in college, which is, I'm dating myself. Ooh, it's been 19 years. So I've been working in media and entertainment since then. And yeah, like I love what I do. I'm currently the producer. I produced my first feature, which was Amofe, which was actually produced in Nigeria by and directed by Eri and Chuko Asiri, first time twin directors who I feel like are the future of not just Nigerian cinema, but African cinema. And yeah, we had a film that premiered at the Berlinale. We've been touring around the world. And to your question about how to get films, how to come from the US to Nigeria, I think it's or US to Africa, I think it's in steps. Like, I knew I wanted to do I knew I wanted to change the narrative of African people. So I went into media. Um, I was naturally inclinated as an artistic kid. So it just felt like a natural fit. Um, and slowly but surely, I took jobs that allowed me to learn more about media until I got an opportunity to work on the continent. And that's really where the shift came for me. Um, yeah. And that's really kind of where the shift came for me in terms of my ability to begin to leave the US and kind of work on the continent. I worked at Iroko Studios, which I started in their New York office, was transferred over to their Lagos office to help the CEO of Rock Studios really kind of get that up off the ground. I was the third employee there. And it was amazing because it really was a top bottoms up idea of what it takes to like run a studio like and develop content, from acquisitions, from acquiring it to trying to finance it to online producing, everything in between. And I fell in love with it then, chose to go to business school just to have a better frame of mind on how to create a business, and have been working in content since. But to answer your question directly, I think you go from the US to Nigeria in steps, like, or I keep saying Nigeria, I really mean Africa. I went to the US to Nigeria, but if you want to go and direct content, you really kind of have to choose where you're going, why you're going there, really figure out who the partners are, do a lot of exploration. I don't recommend just jumping in because you want to direct content. Really know why you're doing it and how you're going to add value behind you.
Nice. That's great. That's great. So, how about you, Natural? What has your experience been? First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can answer that same question. And I know not everyone actually necessarily went to Africa and do a film, but they have had experiences abroad in the diaspora. So I know you had did a film in Brazil, and coming from the United States, I think you may have mentioned that was, a new experience for you. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you do and what you've done abroad with film?
Yes, peace. Natural Langdon, writer, producer, filmmaker, and I've been traveling to the continent, to Africa, about 25 years ago. I had the opportunity just to pick up one day, very little planning, very little anything, grab the camera and go on a voyage, a search to Africa. The first stop was Morocco, and I was just documenting my travels, and things were totally different than compared to now because I just recently went back to Morocco about 3 years ago and shot some new stuff, shot some content with artists. And in the same vein, I just went back out there and kind of retraced my steps. And once I got on the ground, I started working with different artists to produce content. For me, I think there's so many different ways to produce and get into the market there. For some people, they have connections and contacts. For myself, originally I didn't. I started building my contacts on the ground and really, just connecting with artists. But I had a vision in terms of wanting to show Africa in a way that it wasn't shown from the schools or the perspectives of America. When I saw Africa, it was more from a European perspective or mindset, and I wanted to expand that. So just recently, I shot some content in Nigeria at the Olojo Festival, documenting that, and then I shot some content in Ghana and then Ethiopia. So the way I've been. Oh, and also I just shot a music video in Egypt. So I've been shooting a lot in Africa, and as you mentioned, I've been shooting in the diaspora as well in Brazil, Haiti, Cuba. So I've been moving around in the last 5 years, really connecting. But I feel like this is the best time to connect with Africa or the African diaspora via the internet. That's the best way I could tell people if you really want to try to connect. And I would also connect with like-minded people, artists. I would vet them in terms of looking at their work, who they're connected to, because you want to make sure when you go, you're safe, and not only safe physically, but your finances is in order. You aren't taking more than you're giving, so there's a balance there, and you're not letting people just take whatever they want from you. So I believe with some vision, hard work, and some strength, you can really create in Africa and abroad.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that's great. I mean, I'm sure as we go on to this conversation, I'm sure we're gonna get into the do's and the don'ts and the strengths and the weaknesses. But let's hear from Bobby Diggy, who's been exposed to a lot of filmmakers and artists, particularly coming out of Nigeria, but even in some other places. So, Bobby, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience?
Yeah, peace and love to everyone here. For some reason, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm experiencing some glitches in the screen. So, in any case, my name is Bobby Digi. I'm the president of the Nigerian in the Diaspora, which is the main organization and body that the Nigerian government recognizes in terms of liaisoning with the people of Nigeria in the diaspora, and that's America. Nigerians living abroad or born abroad, etc. I myself, I was born in Brooklyn. I had the privilege of living in Nigeria. I went to junior high school, and then university for 2 years. One of the oldest universities in Africa, and then I came back to America. And fortunately, as a social entrepreneur, I graduated as a social entrepreneur. I was able to really invest in the music industry, producing artists, and I was managing artists like Wayne Wonder, Kimani Marley, broke their career in Japan, did an extensive amount of work in Jamaica, and coming back to America and really getting closer to my Nigerian roots, I started investing in Nollywood artists. Some of the artists that I brought to America were Desmond Elliott, who's now actually a senator in Nigeria. Tante DK, who's huge. She's like Nicki Minaj. A lot of artists that I work with over the years. And the way I work with them is I owned a lounge on Staten Island before the spot I own now. And what happened is when Nollywood was really bubbling, people were literally Africans in the diaspora were paying just like you would a Hollywood celebrity. There was a big buzz for Nollywood, and Africans would actually pay to go into clubs, to be in spaces with these celebs, take photos, and kind of network. So I got into that business for a couple of years, and I was sponsoring a lot of Nollywood artists, and then also even Davido. I sponsored Davido's concert before he blew up in New York. A bunch of Nigerian artists, and it's a very small community when you're in the entertainment industry. And pardon the background noise. As I said, I'm in my restaurant, so it's a very small knit tight community, especially in the entertainment industry in New York City and state. So fast forward to about a year ago, I got elected to become the president, the youngest president of the Nigerians in the diaspora in New York State. So NIDO, which is the acronym, is a national organization. So there are chapters all over the country. This is the agency that not only the government, but a lot of the institutions in Nigeria, they liaison with when they come to the diaspora. So it's offered me a major platform to be able to help facilitate film screening, bringing Nigerian artists to America to sort of create collaborations with American artists and really help to foster and push and promote the culture in a way that really brings to the forefront the accomplishment of Nollywood. And Nollywood, at this point, has become the second biggest movie industry behind Hollywood. So you have Hollywood, Nollywood, and I believe Nollywood eclipsed Bollywood. It's arguable. It is the biggest movie industry in Africa. So it means that if you want to gain access to the African audience, that of course it would benefit you to have an entry point into Nigeria because they're much more sophisticated and they're definitely leading the charge. That said, we had a lot planned for this year, and everybody, as everybody knows, COVID-19 really changed everybody's plan. So we are at the point restructuring and really exploring ways that we can go about relaunching our efforts for 2021. So, Anna, I'm really looking forward to working with you. We've worked on a couple of these panels before. I commend the work that you're doing. I commend the work that all the panelists are doing here. And my Nigerian sister, I want to encourage you for us to connect later on, because I'm always looking to bring on the generation next, the younger generation. I'm the youngest president in all of the chapters, and my mindset is always about empowering young people and really giving them the platform, not
Mhm.
saying, well, the youth of the future, but it's about now really putting them in the forefront, because the skill sets that they're developing and have developed is what's going to help to advance the foundation that has been created. So I'm very humbled and honored to be here, and I look forward to more engagement. And I hope I didn't break up in all of everything I was saying.
No, you were
All right,
perfect.
great.
I think I'm muted.
You were muted.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. Because it sounds like now it's a new time and we need to come up with a couple of cookie cutters or pipelines on how to get films made. Um, Here in the States, there's a lack of inclusion when it comes to um, African Americans and in Hollywood and many of the other studios. Yet and still, the money that we spend to make a movie here, we could be collaborating with someone in Africa and creating a great movie for maybe, from my understanding, $250,000, $1 million. Where here you're knocking on doors, you need $15 million to be have a credible movie most of the time when it comes to Hollywood. So first of all, whoever controls the story, whoever controls the narrative, tells the story, and we need to control our narrative. Many African Americans here believe that they talk about Africa as if it's one country, and not know they don't know the variations and the different countries. So how can it change the way we perceive each other if African American filmmakers and African filmmakers or Haitian American, or I'll go all through the diaspora, if we begin to collaborate and do films together and telling the stories about our relationships with one another? Would anyone could jump in on that question?
I could jump
I
in.
don't know if okay.
Yeah, I feel that it's a really, really great point that you bring forward, and I think it's consistent with the struggle that we as Black folks who are not monolithic deal with in America and in the diaspora. There's that constant yearning for unification of continental Africans, African Americans, and Caribbean Americans as well. And what I really appreciated about this year, above all, was the bubbling to the surface and the global acknowledgement of Black Lives Matter movement. I think that really showed that our stories are one and the same, and that showed us that our struggle is the same. And my prayer and my hope is that the ancestors continue to open our eyes to the commonalities that we as Black people, people of the African diaspora, have in common. And our stories are the same. You talk about stories of oppression. When you think about the colonial period, you think about raiders who went into a household and separated family members and perhaps then civilized or raised the family members elsewhere. And the story of these two families, and I'm talking about African, Caribbeans, and African Americans, figuring this all out and really really coming to terms and to peace, you know, to the experience that divided us and finding what brings us together, be it in food, be it in the vibration, be it in the music. Because when you listen to what's happening in Afro beats right now, you know, it transcends, the continental Africa. It's here in America, and you find that Chris Brown can collaborate with a DeVito, for instance. You find like Chronix collaborating with a Burner Boy. You understand? That is evidence
Right.
of what is possible. And you can hear the sonic in the sound. You can hear the unification in the sound. Puff Daddy producing Burner Boy's latest album. That is proof that when we bring those worlds together, we merge that we are bringing the wholeness of our experience. And when we're enjoying it, you don't say, well, geez, well, that's African American sound. Well, it's the one sound that brings us together. So I would love to see that in the movie industry. I would love to see an opportunity where African Americans, like, either an Ice Cube collaborating with a Nigerian producer, and then I would love to see what that looks like. And it's very possible. I think that this year has created.
Bobby,
Uh,
I
yes,
was
please.
I actually want to segue into what you're saying.
Segue into it, sister. Come on in.
Good, good.
Love
So,
that.
I think that to Bobby's point, I do think that that kind of cross maturation within the global African diaspora, where somebody from Nigeria can work with somebody in America, and you're seeing conversations between somebody in Brazil and Cuba happening with somebody in Cameroon or Benin, like those things are starting to happen. Now, to Bobby's point, I think that music was the place where it paved the way for that kind of cross-cultural conversation. But I think that you will see more of that in film and television. I'm in constant conversations with people. Like I was talking to Mateus, the director of Shine Your Eye. And I don't want to butcher his last name, but Shine Your Eye is basically an immigrant story about an Igbo man who's the second son, who goes in search of the first son, only to find, and to eventually find him in a certain way. But throughout the story, you are engaged with this person, this man's kind of interaction with Sao Paulo. And and in that conversation, this was a conversation that we had on Clubhouse, which is a new platform that I feel like everybody should be on right now, because there are tons of like amazing conversations that are happening. To Bobby's point, where to the point of the question, really, where people in the States are talking directly to people in the UK, and people in the UK are talking directly to people in Brazil, and all of us are trying to really have conversations about what the other needs and what the other's perspective is in terms of where they're at. And so I think that you're going to see more of that in film. But just to kind of take a step back to Shine Your Eye in particular, what Mateus did to make that film is he worked with several Nigerian writers to bring that film to life. The lead actor is a Nigerian actor who comes from the Nollywood set, Osi Okeje. And I just fundamentally believe that what he was able to do was create a truly authentic Igbo story set in Brazil, and a kind of fish out of water story for this Igbo man. But make no mistake, you felt that he was an Igbo man. And this is from a like white Brazilian director. So that's just one example of what we're talking about. But from that example, there were tons of conversations that were being had even in that room, where we were talking about how can people from Brazil work more with Nigerians. If Brazil is the largest has the largest Black population outside of Africa. How do we get our films over there? Like, how do we start working more with people over there and vice versa? Especially since right now, because of the current government, Brazil in and of itself, their film industry has been waning. So those questions are out there in the world. I think it's about the one-to-one kind of like relationships that are going to kind of bring that to life, where it's like, in order for Mateus to find the crew that really helped him come up with that film and story and script, he utilized his network. He had a couple of Nigerians in his community, and those Nigerians connected him to other Nigerians, and like he just sourced enough of like a community to really be able to get authentic voices that worked well with him to create a beautiful story. And I think you're going to see more and more of that, where it's like, say I'm in Newark, New Jersey, and somebody's like, "Oh, Melissa, I want to make a film in SA." I'm like, "Well, I'm not from SA, and I don't have necessarily the knowledge to make that film, but I do know a couple of film producers in SA, and I know like a commissioning editor at Mnet or something, like, you know." And I'm not saying I do. I'm just making things up, but for the sake of the argument. But essentially, like, you're utilizing my contacts allows that person to have a gateway and a bridge to South Africa to create that content. And to Natural's point earlier, in terms of sourcing like the people you're working with, it's both about your safety, but also about like your peace of mind. Like when you're creating something, like you're giving birth to something, whether you're the writer, director, or the producer, or the investor. Like it truly is a massive investment of time and resources to actually produce anything. And so because of that, you need to be constantly sourcing who you're working with, because your film is not like an album, is not like a book. It's a very different and particular beast. And even television, like television and film are like very particular beasts in that these can tend to be lifelong investments. Like if we're talking like the old school way of how things were done, where we're talking about theatrical windows and like airplanes and SVOD, HBO, and all that other stuff, as opposed to the buyouts that we now have. You can be in a relationship on a film with the team that you're with anywhere from like 4 to 5 years to 20 years, depending on how that film gets distributed and how the payment structure comes in. And so I say all this to say that, like, building those one-to-one relationships, really vetting the people around you, learning more about things outside of yourself is what's going to help us get to that place where what we're seeing in music now is going to be what's happening more and more in the film and entertainment landscape, or the content landscape, excuse me. Though I do think it is happening.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I've been fortunate just this year to go to South Africa and shoot, go to Zambia, go to Zimbabwe, go to Botswana, right? To shoot. I'm on a land there, you know, with my camera and just connecting in a different way. But one thing I decided to do as I'm moving around was teach the kids there. So I'm going into these communities and through the support of, you know, just everyday people that's working hard and taking care of their families, you know, support with this program I have called Global Arts and Travel. I teach little kids. I'm talking about babies from like 5 years old all the way to women, you know, in the community, you know, whose children those are, and men as well. But mostly I focus on the kids, the little kids, and the women, to help them use the camera to utilize their own voice. A lot of times when people are going into these communities, our communities, they're not people that look like them. They're not people that have their interests in mind. They're not people that's trying to share with them. They normally feel like someone's trying to take from them. So when you go on the ground and you're willing to share and you're willing to communicate ideas and put the camera in their hands and leave a camera, then I believe you start to open up a trust factor there. You start opening up a dialogue. You start opening up a real community. And that's been my goal over the last 5 years, when I just realized, like, man, we're not able to tell our own stories. We have outsiders telling our stories and really stripping away the essence of what it is. And the thing is, I can't even tell, someone's story that's in, the continent. That's why I felt like it was my duty to also share the fundamental tools so they could tell their own story as I tell my story as I'm moving through. And I find that to be important. Another thing is, on a grassroots level, sometimes it's great for we have these big name artists and they collaborate and all that. And a lot of times you have corporations and different people behind running this, and also there's a lot of business and a lot of politics involved. So I feel like, we have to have that on that grand level to make that impact. But I think on a local level, on a small level, on a niche level, on a content creating level, utilizing, distribution outlets that we have available to us, whether it's, your own website or, Facebook or whatever the normal ways of distributing content. We can utilize these platforms just to build. So when you start seeing it, it becomes real, right? And when it becomes real to you, now the bigger artists are going to be wanting to do it too. But it takes this interaction of independent, small, and when I say small, I just mean in scope, not an idea, and
so like specific, like one-to-one relationships, you mean?
I mean that's just my route,
Okay.
There's many routes. That's what I'm saying. For my route, I'm doing this, right? And I'm packaging it in a way where it'll be, when you see it, you'll see, the connections. Like, for instance, we just shot a movie in Bahia, Brazil. Ground level, all first time actors, right? And in a way, I was kind of forced to shoot the film there, because even when I tried to shoot it in America, even with my homies that I've been shooting films with for 10 plus years, the money wasn't available to do it. So we were able to take the money that we had and go to Brazil and right on the ground level create a film. And this film has now had impact and screened, in the U.S., in Brazil, in Africa, in the Caribbean, and it's also empowering because it's about a blind 15-year-old young woman who has to save her family from the criminal underworld. So it's a superhero type of film, but showing a young Black girl coming into herself, coming of age, and I feel like these are just the little stories that will have significant impact, because at the end of the day, you realize when you see this, you can do it. This is it's viable. It's not like I gotta wait for some big DC or these people or anybody to fund me. Else it'll never happen. If I tried to get to 4 countries in Africa, in a year, without waiting for funding from someone, I will still be waiting.
Well, that's
Fair
the
enough.
power. Yeah,
That's
that's
true.
definitely the power of independence. And I mean, I hear all of the passion in what you're sharing, and I definitely want to commend you on your proactive, efforts towards it. And quite frankly, what I just want to add is to what you piggyback off what you're saying is that there isn't one way to do it. You
Exactly.
Yeah.
understand? It's a collective impact, and the fact that everybody, like you, Natural, Melissa, even what Anna is doing, this conversation, it's gonna birth an idea in somebody's head or mind, and this is what we as a Black people and myself as a social entrepreneur, I always tell folks about. Like, it's not negative competition. Positive competition is what lifts the boat. So I feel like everybody's gonna do it differently, and that what they do, each of it is a fiber in the cloth, and that's being woven, and it's the interconnectivity. So when we talk about from USA to Africa, it takes what you're doing, Natural, traveling there, because if you don't travel there, how can you really connect to the grassroots? how can you really truly connect to the stories? You can't. You really have to experience it. I try to tell. So I always tell you, brother, like, look, you know, what you spend a year just frivolously doing other things, you could save and take a trip to any part of Africa and get to know it. You know, it's like you traveling to any European country. Like you don't, if you don't know somebody there, it's no different than going to Africa. We have to begin to explore Africa. So for me, as president of the Nigerian diaspora, one of the things I was trying to do this year was connect all of the social political dots between the Nigerian consulate in Manhattan with all the social African American leaders and begin to have a conversation. And another idea I floated, which the city council approved, was just how the Jewish clergy traveled to Israel. I want to see the African American elected officials travel to Africa and explore and open up gateways for connectivity. Because, truth be told, we can do everything that we do, but if we don't have, if we don't build the machinery, if we don't build that bridge that connects
The
the diaspora,
infrastructure
yeah,
to
if we
connect
don't
us.
do that, what happens is that we have to talk about sustainability. And I always build from a framework of how do we sustain what we're doing. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? It's like,
that's
because
true.
that's the key. And we as the people, we have to get into the of mind of controlling what we create. And when I say controlling what we create, it ain't just about, yo, yeah, I did a movie, blah, 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 distribution, you know, and we talked about this the last time I was here. And this all connects in being able to articulate the importance of city and state and federal government investing in cultural exploration. When you talk about reparation can happen in many ways. You know, you have to, America has to be held, you know, it's being held accountable. But when we talk about reparation, we got to talk about, you know, remember this, during slavery, what they did, which was they were successful in, is that they erased the culture and the history of the African slaves, or let me not say African slaves, I got to correct myself, the enslaved, because they weren't slaves. These were kings and queens from the continent who were captured and brought here. So there was a brainwashing that occurred. So now that you talk about what you talk about, Natural and Melissa, what we're talking about is selling our stories to our people and really being the narrators of our narrative. You know, and there's a group I'm working with on Staten Island called Changing the Narrative. So in order to do that, you need funding. Okay? In order to do that, you need city, state, and federal support, investment in cultural institutions in Black and brown communities. Because when you look at the investment, the white owned and led institutions, when you look at the dollars they get from city, state, and federal, I'm talking about is a 10,000 to a 1,000 that a Black or brown cultural institutions getting. So there's multi-layer and there's a multi-pronged approach that has to be taken. That's why it's important that we in our collective fields master our fields. And what we do is we support each other and form Voltron. We don't tear apart. You know, we don't say, well, you know, that person could have been doing like this, could have been doing like that. No, you take what the person's doing and you can add on or build on. You understand? So we got to do away with the tearing apart, the negative competition, so on and so forth. I yield at this point.
That brings me to my point at the very beginning, the pipeline. I want to say so many people have come to me. I want to do a film in Africa constantly, being that I'm with the Kwanzaa Film Festival and I work with other people. They say, I want to do a film in Africa. To me, there should be some kind of pipeline. There should be, I know how I'm going to get there. I know where the resources that I can go to. I know when I land, I know where I'm going to sleep, where I am going to, what studio I'm going to be involved with, what, in terms of empowering the community, what crew I can have access to. I think one of the real valuable things that can happen if a pipeline is created in certain, particularly in areas where film seems to be growing, Ghana is starting to grow in film. Of course, Nollywood is, South Africa definitely, but there are places like Kenya that's available to grow, Rwanda and some other places. So I think that creating a pipeline, okay, when I went to the American film market, majority of people who go to that market are, not people that look like us, but they have all of these panels on, you know, Nollywood and Africa, and their conversation to me is really in on how Netflix can have a relationship to Africa, how Hollywood could have a relationship to Africa. Now Nollywood and Bollywood are actually communing together. Reparations is not just money. Reparations is repairing the relationship between African Americans and Africa. Reparations, which is it should be reparations. So part of the repairing is being able to tell the narratives, being able to tell our own stories. Whoever tells the story, whoever tells the narrative will control the story, right? So if you have all of these other people with other intentions coming in that have money, sometimes, yeah, you may want the money, but sometimes we have to look at the long-term effects and have some value in us collaborating collectively, working together, using cooperative economics to get projects done. Because I'm constantly being asked, I want to do a project in Africa. Most of the time, that person has content that is relevant universally when they say that. And why do I have to go to Australia or Canada or all those places when we could go to what we call here the motherland, right? But I think what you mentioned, Bobby, about there are people who make sure that people go to Israel, right? But people don't. There are like accounts. Like if you want to go to Israel and you never went there before, and you're Jewish, there's billionaires that have money to make sure that
Free,
you go to
free.
Israel. But that
Yeah,
is not
free of
happening
charge.
in our
Yeah,
relationship. Some feedback on
so
that.
with birthright, that's what we're talking about, birthright. It essentially allows like people who are Jewish and particularly American Jews. I don't know if it's beyond the American Jewish population, but I do know a number of Jewish people who had their birthright trip. I think it happens between like 18 to like 30. You're given the opportunity to go to Israel and really connect with what is their motherland. Look, some of that, a lot of that does come from reparations, right? Like there were a number of Jews who were given reparations from the German government, and that those reparations still have effects today. So I was talking to a friend, I want to say a couple of months ago, and she was talking about how her grandmother gets a check and sometimes she shares the check. Her father went to medical school and was able to pay for it um, through the reparations that were given to his family based off the Holocaust. But what I would say is if we can't, to Langdon's point, and to we've kind of all said this, like yes, there needs to be a structure for how we as African Americans go back to Nigeria, like Senegal, like South Africa, and connect in order, not just connect, because there's two parts to this conversation, I think. I think there's the part about us connecting as African diasporans, and I think there's the part about us connecting as filmmakers. And I think the first structure would lead to the second structure. However, those structures don't exist. And so because those structures don't exist, we as filmmakers who are invested in it individually have to do the legwork ourselves until we either create those structures or those structures are created around us. And that's just how I feel about it. Like each of us on this panel have done individual work to make sure that Africa, how to co-produce from the U.S. to the continent happens for us. Like we know, Langdon knows how. Natural knows how he's gonna like how he can produce something in Egypt, how he can produce something in South Africa. I think you said Nigeria. I know you said another thing. There were four, but like he knows how he's gonna get something made in the places he wants to get something made. Bobby has contacts where he now knows if he wants to do a Nollywood project, he can probably call a bunch of people that are still some of the hottest artists within Nollywood to do that, to do that film. I am connecting to a different part of the Nigerian film industry, but make no mistake, if I want to make a film, there are people I can go to make that film. And that's really what I'm saying. It's like I completely understand that there needs to be infrastructure, but if we want to have that one-to-one relationship, anybody who wants to make a film in Africa, you go out and you find a way to make that film. It's just like, and to be honest with you, it's just like any film we've had to make anywhere in the world, whether it's Brazil, like Afro-Brazilians are just now really like having a voice within the greater context of Brazil, right? Like everybody likes to talk about how Brazil is this rainbow nation, and because of that, there was this idea that there was no racism, but there were a ton of things that were happening that very much was like racist as hell, right? And I say that to say that like, so Afro-Brazilians had to find a way to kind of tell stories that spoke to their truth. For Natural, Bobby, myself, like whether we were making films here or back home, it was always going to be hard. So we were always going to have to find a way to get those films made, find a way to get the money made, find like you're going to have to like pick yourself up and find those resources. Now, do I want it to be that hard for someone else? Because I think part of this conversation is how, as people who have done it, figure out a way to make it easier for the next man. I do think that's important.
I
And
can help with that.
yeah,
I like to,
yeah,
if I can get
answer.
in at this point. So I'm speaking now in official capacity. When I say official capacity, is as an elected representative statewide, Nigerians in the diaspora. Of course, that connects to Nollywood. So to Ina's question, and I want to just address. I want to be crystal clear. There are ways to afford filmmakers, tourists, and people who are interested in going into Nigeria to the point that you made and to the point Natural made is going there and dealing with credible people, ensuring safety, dealing with people who are professional. So with NIDO, um, that is a very clear cut platform that is recognized by the government and is recognized by the consulate. So meaning that the issues that y'all would face trying to go get a visa, I can walk you through that. Period. You know what I mean? Like, because that's the bridge. We are the bridge for you to go in there and gain conveniency. We're not having to jump through hoops. And why is that? Because, NIDO was formed to deal with the welfare and well-being of Nigerians in the diaspora. So we are a facilitator with the government and with the council and so on and so forth. Now, with my background, when I went to do my pressers and my press release, in Nigeria, I was met by a lot of talented young professionals in Lagos because I did a press tour last December. I landed in Lagos. I met with the Lagos Tourism Board. We had a phenomenal press conference. They told me what they were doing. I found out how many waterfalls were in Nigeria. I mean, stuff blew my mind. And they brought all this information to me saying, hey, look, we're looking to work with you because we know you represent the Nigerians in the diaspora. And then I went to the capital, which is Abuja. So relationships were cultivated. And I'm someone that likes to deal with professional individuals. So I'm saying to y'all that I do have the access, without having to jump through hoops, the access to be able to get into Nigeria with ease, get access to producers who have reputations and credibility, and gain access to studios and be involved with the red carpet events, because there are plenty of them going on over there. It's big. Let me tell you something. Nigeria is on a next level. Let me just tell you, man. Like, you got to be there to see what's going on there. These guys haven't figured out. It ain't even what you think it is. I mean, when you see like an event, a Nollywood release or a viewing, top notch, top notch, top notch. Red carpet, soups and nuts. It's all done professionally. The media is there. So I already have that. It's not about experiments, whatever. One is because of the stuff I've done. Two is because of Nigerian and diaspora platform, which I do have. And I'm willing to work with all of you here. And I'm willing to work with other filmmakers and artists who are looking to make the foray into Nigeria. And the same thing is what while I'm in Nigeria, I'm offering to them, because I'm plugged in New York, from the governor's office to the mayor's office to my city councils, my elected official, and having ran for office to sort of have the experience. And I want to see people, creators, be able to create with ease without having to deal with the guessing game, to be able to just focus on content and the outcomes and deliverables that they're looking to produce in the end product. So,
yeah. I actually want to make a couple shameless plugs to some people I've worked with in the past on the continent, and specifically Nigeria, because that's still where I do most of my producing, at least for right now. The main financier, backer, and logistical partner that we had on ground was Guardian Studios. They are an up and coming, well, actually it's GDN Studios, but they are affiliated with Guardian NG, the major newspaper owned by and operated by the Ibu family. They really came on and kind of rode with a first-time producer and first-time filmmakers in a very ambitious project where we shot 16 millimeter film in Lagos, Nigeria, got that stuff developed, had to ship it, get it developed in New York. And luckily we had no problems, but they did a lot to make our lives easier, from connecting us with some of the hotel financiers to actually providing us with the trucks and vehicles necessary. Like, you felt like we were a real live Hollywood production, just happened to be transported in Lagos. And I will say, as partners, they were really able to effectively make that happen.
And that's interesting. I just wanted to say that particular project, before it was even got to their level, I consulted with Syed for a whole year before he even developed that whole thing, and it's been fabulous ever since. I'm sorry.
Really,
I just wanted to. I did not know you were talking about that particular production
they
company.
really and even with financing, they were tremendous in terms of getting it made, because in film production, and especially with first-time filmmakers, you underestimate a lot, and they rode through everything with us. So there's somebody who, they're an up-and-coming true studio that I think everybody should be paying attention to. Another studio that I know of is BCI Studios with Baba Agba, who I know has done some work with on a UK production. I think on farming, actually. I think he provided support on farming. And then there's another, this isn't a studio, but this is a producer who is actually associated with a free. Her name is Chioma Onyenwu, and she does anything from theater to film productions to podcasts. She's tremendous. She is basically one of the people I think is going to be the next up and coming, like, major producers coming out of Nigeria. So I think that if those having those names helps you, then by all means take them and run with it. But yeah, like for me, it's just about making sure that people have the information so that they can go and source these out for themselves, see how it fits. But there are definitely things happening in Nigeria right now where that are within the Nigerian film industry and beyond Nollywood that I think allows there to be more of a one-to-one communication, um, not even a more one-to-one communication, where there's a true kind of effective resources and kind of standardized studio, if you will, on the ground and standardized production services on the ground, that I think is going to really continue to grow and make Nigerian productions more viable globally.
That is wonderful, Melissa. First of all, I mean, everyone has been just dropping so many jewels. I really appreciate you all coming to share with our viewers how to co-produce in from Africa to United States to Africa, and all in between. I hope that we can continue to have these conversations. And we only could do but so much in an hour, but I feel like you get given them so much to start with. And I think each and
I
every
hope
one of
so.
you, and hopefully we all can talk again, because I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about that. And it's one of my goals is just to see us working together, creating content, showing our stories, and you see a lot of interracial content, but what about if I was born here and my husband was born in Africa? What about my relationship? You know what I mean? Isn't that interesting? Don't we want to see that
It
too?
is. It
So
is
thank
for
you
sure.
very, very much, and we will talk, and I definitely am looking forward to hearing more from each one of you. If anyone wants to have like one last sentence, that's how we don't have a lot of time, but just like one closing sentence from
I
each of
just
the
wanted to
panelists. Bobby? Oh,
I think
natural?
Nigel
Fine.
wanted to say
Natural.
something
Yeah,
and he didn't get to say it again.
I just want to tell filmmakers in particular to now the filmmakers in America that want to shoot in Nigeria or Africa, the filmmakers that's in the continent and want to shoot here or just collaborate. This is the opportunity where we can have this dialogue, in a global way on whatever platform we need to have it on, however we need to have it. But I'm about getting things done, right? And I'm telling filmmakers, like, let's get it done because the industry is going to find us and follow us, and the pipeline is going to be where we are. As long as we creating content and own that content, then they got to come to us to get it. So don't be jaded, don't be hurt. It's coming to you.
That's dope. That's
Absolutely.
definitely
Bobby?
peace. Oh, yeah, I just want to close out because I have a bunch of people waiting for me.
Okay.
I want to applaud you for really keeping this platform and conversation alive, because it allows. In the last panel I was able to connect with some people, and we were further in the conversation. I think that we have to talk, plan, and execute. And like I said, and kudos to everyone that's out there pushing me. Of course, there are people who are doing great work who are not on this platform. Let's find ways to create synergies. For me, again, like I said, I'm in an official capacity, so we have resources in a way that again, NIDO is a very unique organization. There is no other organization like NIDO. The access that NIDO has, no other organization has. I'm not just saying it, it's because of the way that it was structured, and that's the pipeline. I want to offer that to people who are looking to gain, an experience that's painless. Of course, everybody's going to learn their own issues. So once again, is Nigerian diaspora, New York. It's NIDO, and you can contact me at bobbyd.dd@gmail.com. That's my Gmail. If you're located on Staten Island, I own the only Black-owned and Black-led art gallery and multidisciplinary space, which I open up to our people. If you're here and you're eating, check out my restaurant. It's called O. Henry's Public House. We also own a clinic in the borough. So I'm about ownership, Black empowerment, economic empowerment. So these are resources that filmmakers are looking for. You know, if you're looking for a clinic to do a shoot, they're looking for us to do a shoot, they're looking for an arts gallery to do a shoot. I'm telling you that I'm willing to work with you to make it happen so that you can gain these spaces and blacks supporting blacks. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor. Kudos to you, Melissa. Kudos to you, Natural Inners.
Oh,
Peace and
respect,
love to
Bobby.
all of you.
Thank
Respect.
And the
Thank
other
you.
you.
brother in the back behind the scenes
Thank,
doing the
thank you.
tech
Thank
work.
you.
All right, love to everybody. Peace.
Love, love. No,
Peace,
go
Bobby.
with
Love.
family. No problem.
Got
Melissa,
it.
you have any last words?
Yeah, I think that yes, there's a need for infrastructure, there's a need for financing. We There is so much that as Black filmmakers we still have to do for ourselves. But make no mistake, like if you want a film made, whether it be here, whether it be Brazil, whether it be on the continent, whether it be in Timbuktu, go after it. It's up to you
Yes.
to make that film. It's your choice, it's your decision. And if you want it done, you have to do it yourself. You have to, unfortunately, we still in the place where we have to build our own bridges, but I promise you, like you will get to the other side where it's worthwhile. And all of a sudden you have a community of people that you respect and want to work with and who want to work with you. You just have to do the
Thank
work.
you. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, wonderful evening. Kwanzaa Film Festival thanks you. And we're asking our audience definitely leave some feedback in the chat room and look for our next workshop. Thank you and have a good night or day or afternoon.